FPL Game Week 32 players to buy and wildcard draft. In today's video, we'll be going through the Vert verified power ranking, my top 5 for the next 5, and a wildcard draft for Game Week 32 if you have it active. So it'll be including Jacob Murphy for sure. So if you enjoyed the video, make sure you smash that like button and hit that subscribe. And let's get into it. What's up? It's FPL Vert, where arrows go green, and as you can see, there's back-to-back greens. But we'll discuss that in my team selection later this week. But just as a disclaimer, as we're discussing players to buy and transfer targets, there's European competition midweek with Arsenal, Aston Villa, Tottenham Hotspur, Manchester United and Chelsea all featuring in midweek games. So it goes without saying, please do not make any transfers until the end of the Chelsea game, because even if you're not thinking of buying players from any of these teams, there may be injuries from players that already exist in your teams and something can always pop up. So definitely hold off on the transfers for now. So starting with the goalkeepers in the Vert verified power ranking, my top 5 for the next 5 across all the positions. I do have, if you're buying new, like this week, I would have Pope probably number 1 if you just want it for 1 week, but I would actually be having Martinez and Raya on a wildcard. I just think those are the 2 best options for bench boost. Obviously it depends if you want to bench boost, but as of game week 32, if you want to buy new, it would be Pope for sure. He just kept a clean sheet. Again, I mean, obviously keeping a clean sheet against Leicester doesn't really mean anything. They haven't scored a goal, Leicester City, since February, I believe. So that's like 8 games in a row now. So they cannot find the back of the net. But yeah, you would have Henderson number 2, and then the rest. I mean, Verbruggen makes up the list just because he's got a decent fixture this week. But if you're on wildcard, it'll be Raya and Martinez. If you're just buying a goalkeeper this week, which I don't think you will be, it'll be Pope. So into the defenders, and we do have Daniel Munoz at number 1. He has just 2 blanks in his last 10 starts. Of course, he didn't play in game week 29, but from his starts, he's only blanked twice. So he got on the score sheet on the weekend with what turned out to be the winner against Brighton. And I think even despite the difficult pictures on paper, I mean, at that price, you can't really argue. So we'll have him there. I've also got Tino Livramento at number 2. I personally went for Burn on my own wildcard, which I'm ruining the fact that I did that. Of course, Tino Livramento has only got 1 assist all season, and he got that just last night. But I probably should have been paying a bit closer attention to the positions he was taking up since obviously Lewis Hall got injured. And of course, he's clearly had a tactical tweak in the system. Obviously, before it was Lewis Hall that's going forward, it's now Tino Livramento going forward. So that's definitely my bad and something to pay attention to for the future, a lesson learnt. But yeah, it would be Livramento for number 2 for me. Gvardiol goes here number 3 because I just think you'd prefer to play him over Saliba this week. Obviously, Saliba's got Real Madrid between today and next Wednesday, so he could be rested potentially. I think obviously Gvardiol offers so much more going forward anyway, even though he's playing centre back now, which does bring him down a little bit in terms of attacking, but he still has more attacking underlying metrics than Saliba. And then Milinkovic is here just because he's got a good, decent fixture this week. So into the midfielders, and probably the most exciting and most talked about asset this game week, probably, most likely, because he returned 16 points last night against Leicester, and he hosts Manchester United and Crystal Palace in a double game week this week. So probably will be the most bought asset. That's who my money was on anyway, and he's actually been in great form. He's only Mohamed Salah and teammate Alexander Isak have more contributions than Jacob Murphy since December 1st. So he's in great form, he's budget friendly, and he has a double game week. So if you don't own him, make sure you go there. Next would be Eberiche Eze. Of course, I've said previously that I would prefer him over Sarr, but I couldn't due to my bench boosting strategy, so I couldn't afford the extra 1.5 mil maybe. But sometimes you always pay for quality, and Eze is just clear as a better player. He's done more recently, even though he didn't put up the best underlying metrics against Brighton. I think he got 2 assists from like 0.02 XA. He is central to what they do, and he's got the better pass, he's got the better vision, and he can score from range unlike Sarr. So definitely go there if you can. The next picks are a bit, well, it's reliant on how many minutes they play, both in the Champions League and, well, the Premier League. So that's why I wouldn't really wildcard this week, because it's in between the 2 Champions League fixtures, between Arsenal and Aston Villa, with Real Madrid and PSG respectively. But I think for next week, obviously, I think most people are thinking of bench boosting, and obviously game week 33 is the biggest double of the season. So I would be looking at Rodgers, Mourinho and Rashford. I do think Rashford's probably more likely to start in the Premier League this week, because obviously he started from the bench and Rodgers essentially plays every single minute that God has sent. So you would imagine Rodgers gets rested against Southampton, but I think if you're buying new, you probably just get Rodgers and firm however many minutes he gets this week, because obviously you're going to want him in game week 33. But I own Rashford personally, and I do think he could start, because obviously he started from the bench on the weekend. So let's see what happens. And last but not least, into the forwards. And at number 1, we have Jean-Philippe Mateta at number 1 after his fantastically well taken goal to open the scoring against Brighton in the A23 derby. And he's actually been in great form. Again, Crystal Palace's fixtures aren't really the best on paper, but you can see both Manchester City and Newcastle conceding to Crystal Palace, especially Crystal Palace that's been an amazing team on the road recently. I think Southampton was ironically the first time they haven't won an away day since December, when they lost to Arsenal in the League Cup. But since the turn of the year, they've been in fantastic form on the road, and I think you have to go there really. Alexander Isak comes at number 2. Of course, he was an injury doubt apparently yesterday, but it seems like he was fine yesterday, and obviously he blanked. But I do think Newcastle have got more important fixtures than a Leicester City that's heading towards relegation. So probably took the opportunity to rest him. You would imagine he starts both Manchester United and Crystal Palace. So yeah, I think he will be most people's captain this week, but of course he's not top in terms of form, so that's why he's number 2. Then we have Marmoush third as well. I think it's pretty much a no-brainer with Haaland out. Of course, they play Pascal Palace this week, and then they have a double in game 33, so it's pretty much a no-brainer. And then we've got Nicholas Jackson and Watkins just making up the numbers really, because I don't think anyone's going to pick those two over the top 3. But it's just good to have and see if you want to go a bit differential maybe. Of course, Watkins is a minute's risk, as is Nico Jackson apparently now, because you would imagine that Chelsea playing St. Legia, they wouldn't really need their first team in the Premier League to get the job done, but apparently Maresca thinks otherwise. But yeah, these two do have minutes risks, but if you want to go elsewhere, I'd probably go here. So if we were on a game week 32 wildcard draft, this is what I would put together. I would be starting Martinez over Raya, but I do think it's a possibility that he could be rotated. But obviously for goalkeepers bench, he's not really going to come off the bench unless there's an injury, which is very rare, of course. So we'd start Martinez away to Southampton, who are of course already relegated, which does put Rodgers into doubt as well, I do believe. He basically starts every game, and you would imagine he finally gets some rest in this game, but never really know. Of course, we'd have a triple up of the two teams that are doubling in Munoz, Eze and Mateta, and Livramento, Murphy and Isak captain. Gvardiol and Marmoush hosting Palace ahead of their double next week in game week 33, as it's a wildcard, you want to save transfers wherever possible. Salah would be hosting West Ham because there's nowhere else really to spend the funds, even though he's not been in the best of form. And as I mentioned, Rodgers is definitely a minutes risk. So that's what I'll be looking at if I was on 32 wildcard. Of course, next week's a bit more interesting, as I'll be planning to play my bench boost, and we'll have a bit more of a clearer indication of where the European ties are going in the Champions League, Europa League and Conference League, as the first legs are all today, tomorrow and Thursday. So thanks for watching. Drop any questions you have in the comments, or you can DM me as well on Instagram and Twitter, and then yeah, we'll see you later for the team selection later this week. So speak soon. Thanks for watching. Bye bye.